This is a Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. This is a reading from Chapter 15, The Holy Instant, Section 2, The End of Doubt. The atonement is in time, but not for time. Being in you, it is eternal. What holds remembrance of God cannot be bound by time. No more are you. For unless God is bound, you cannot be. An instant offered to the Holy Spirit is offered to God on your behalf, and in that instant you will awaken gently in Him. In the blessed instant, you will let go of all your past learning, and the Holy Spirit will quickly offer you the whole lesson of peace. What can take time when all the obstacles to learning in it? What can take time when all the obstacles to learning it have been removed? Truth is so far beyond time that all of it happens at once. For as it was created one, so its oneness depends not on time at all.
Well, establishing the holy instant as a certain sort of an event. It's an event that's taken out of time. It's a glimmer of the timeless.
It is, absolutely.
And it's a certain sort of, as we've discussed, I mean, I'm not really sure. Maybe we'll find out what the relationship is between a miracle and the holy instant.
Mm-hmm. And it says an instant offered to the Holy Spirit is offered to God on your behalf, and in that instant you will awaken gently in Him. So it's asking us to offer every instant to the Holy Spirit. Is basically that's what it's asking. In the blessed instant, you will let go all your past learning. In the blessed instant. So when that instant is dawned on us, you'll let go of all past learning, and the Holy Spirit will quickly offer you the whole lesson of peace.
No, let's not be confused.
The
holy instant, the miracle.
Mm-hmm. It is a miracle.
These are experiences.
Yeah, they are.
These are not to be confused with my desire to pray, my feeling of holiness, my feeling of largeness, largesse, compassion, saintliness. It's not about that.
No.
It's an actual experience, a perceived experience out of my normal state of mind.
Yes,
and it starts in small ones, and that's what this is about, is to actually
because as the title says, the end of doubt happens when the Holy Spirit, the holy instant dawns on the mind, because you're outside of time then. It's not in time. The atonement is in time, but it's not. It says the atonement, which is the recognition of our oneness with God, it happens in time, but it also brings on the sense of the eternal. You remember your eternalness.
Right. And it hits you in the face.
It does. It does hit you in the face.
So, paragraph 2?
Yeah.
Do not be concerned with time, and fear not the instant of the instant of holiness that will remove all fear. Fear not the instant of holiness that will remove all fear. For the instant of peace is eternal because it is without fear. It will come, being the lesson God gives you through the teacher He has appointed to translate time into eternity. Blessed is God's teacher, whose joy it is to teach God's holy Son his holiness. His joy is not contained in time. His teaching is for you because his joy is yours. Through him you stand before God's altar, where he gently translates hell into heaven. For it is only in heaven that God would have you be. You know, there's a thing called the beatific vision, and that's what apparently saints have. You know, like as an example, St. Philip Neri supposedly would say Mass, and at the consecration, you know, if you went to Mass with him, he might be there with the host held up during the consecration for 4 hours.
Yeah, impossible by any standards to hold your hands up that high.
Right. And just, you know, people have to endure his beatific vision.
Yes.
St. Teresa of Avila, they said she had a very difficult time even saying the Our Father. She would say, Our Father.
And she would enter into...
She would enter the beatific vision.
Right.
She would say, Our Father, and that was over for her. She couldn't go very much further into the prayer because that was the overwhelming reality she experienced by saying it.
Well, and by having those instances, I imagine that when she said Our Father, the invitation was in as soon as she said Our Father. You know, when it says offer the instant to the Holy Spirit, that is that's the moment where we can have that particular instant happen. But most of us have other things going on at the same time we're saying, I'm offering this instant to the Holy Spirit. We don't really believe it. Whereas she says, Our Father, she's already invited the oneness into her, and so that's it. She's
I'm going to say for them, I think it's actually beyond that for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it's beyond invitation. Their entire life has become an invitation. It's just what they've done from the beginning. So what happens is, and she said that, you know, when nuns they would say, Sister so-and-so is having a vision. She said, feed her more meat. You know, none of these saints are fond of these things. None of them are fond of the beatific vision. Oh. Because they can't do God's work. It distracts them out. They're in the timeless. They're lost in that. Now, that's not my problem. It's not our problem that we're lost in the timeless. You know, we're lost in time.
Right.
You know, sounds like a TV show, doesn't it? Anyway, we're lost in time. Yeah. And so the reason I'm saying that is because as I read this, the whole course is a course in miracles. For what it's worth, it seems to me it's a course in the beatific vision. A how-to manual of the beatific vision. It's telling me how to sort out those glimmers from my usual time sense, what the invitation means, etc.
And it says to fear not the instant of holiness that will remove all fear.
We'll say, okay.
In those instants, there's no fear.
Okay, I know, but go into that. Why on earth would I fear an instant of holiness? Why? Because
the ego does not want holiness at all, because it means that it goes away.
Right, the tent folds up, show's over, it all goes away, and it knows that. And the conventional state of mind that I'm speaking with right now understands that completely.
Yes, it does.
The show is over. So you say, gee, I wish I had the beatific vision. Gee, I wish I had the holy instant. Yeah. We don't. The thing
that's why it says you do it really gradually by handing, you just have these moments where you just quiet for a moment. Say, I offer this to the Holy Spirit. I offer this thought. And then there's a sorting out. You don't want this thought. So that the holy instant has, I offer this to the holy instant. I offer this instant to the holy instant, to the Holy Spirit. And it's, gently coaxing you along so that you won't be afraid of it.
Well, okay.
That's what I think.
No. I guess I have a vision of this thing. It's a little bit like I was talking about tuning a radio or something like that, where the meter, I don't know what it's called, UV meter, or whatever it is, where the little needle snaps into place. You can tell when you're tuned in because it just snaps.
Oh yeah.
Or
when the channel frequency.
My old Canon FTB, it had a grid like this. And everything was way, way out of focus until it was in focus. It snaps in.
Okay.
So this holy instant is a snapping in
Yeah.
to the relationship with the Holy Spirit. You're snapping it in. And it's only an instant for now because of the fear factor. And so the book wisely is saying, yeah, I know that you think you're reading this book or you're doing this thing because you really want to be involved in this thing. But I'm telling you, the reason it's taking so long, in quotes, in time, the reason it's so difficult is only one reason. You don't want to do it and you're afraid of it. That's the only reason it's not happening.
Right.
It's not practice makes perfect. It's not anything.
Yeah,
it's having to experience a holy instant and then be fearless. I told you about that church experience that I had.
Yes.
It brought fear. Why? Because I was going to go away. In that Sarasota church, the conventional reality dissolves, and the ego on your shoulder is saying, "Now what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Now what are you going to do?" It doesn't have a clue, and not one thread of anything. So we have to do it a little bit at a time.
Right. Yeah, so
only to get used to it.
Yes, to get used to it and not be afraid of it. I agree.
Yeah,
I
okay.
agree. Paragraph 3. How long can it take to be where God would have you? How long can it take to be where God would have you? For you are where you have forever been and will forever be. All that you have forever. The blessed instant reaches out to encompass time as God extends himself to encompass you. You have spent days, hours, you who have spent days, hours, and even years in chaining your brothers to your ego in an attempt to support it and uphold its weakness, do not perceive the source of strength. In this holy instant, you will unchain all your brothers and refuse to support either their weakness or your own.
You were talking about that earlier.
Yeah,
it's a powerful.
Have spent days. You who have spent days, hours, and even years in chaining your brothers to your ego. I mean, I have to get my head around that. Chaining my brothers to my ego. And the thoughts that I had are all the ways in which we look for the positive and negative reactions from all the other bodies around us,
The only reason anybody exists.
The thumbs down, all of this sense of, am I doing good? Am I doing right? Or do I care about that? And if that person doesn't say the right thing, I'm going to dismiss them and things like that. All of that has to do with chaining myself and my brothers to my ego.
I have most of reality chained. My brothers, in terms of that, it's like, if we're honest, if we can spend a minute just thinking about my relationship with everybody from my mother, my father, brothers, sisters, friends, people I've worked with, people I just met randomly, people I've worked with in any context or any situation, people I don't know, people I'd like to know, all of them are simply props, scaffolding for my ego. Yeah. All of it. Now that seems harsh. So we ought to think about it a second. Rather than just say, okay, well, that sounds really, really negative. To say that everybody in your life is a scaffold for your flagging ego. But that's what it's saying, and I think that that's true.
Right. Well, there's things that you learn as a child that, stay with you forever. So most of the time it's the negative things from a parent or a sibling or something else. And you have these ideas about yourself based on someone else's perception of you. And then you take it on and believe it. And then you've got to outgrow it, or you've got to figure out what that really means so that it can no longer be a burden upon you from doing things. Because now, you think you're not capable, let's say, in doing certain kinds of things in your life.
You're talking about the direct wound from the interaction
from
with
the
another
egos.
person.
Yeah. So then you carry those as if, that is who you are. And it's, those things. So then we reinforce it with other relationships, new relationships at work, boyfriends and girlfriends until you're in a marriage and things like that. And so if we haven't worked out some of what that is, you're always playing out that ego game. You're playing back and forth, trying to find somebody who's going to think you're great. That's all there's to it. We're all looking for somebody who thinks we're great.
Well,
you know.
or if I look at it in a more you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. Psychologically, you're correct. You are absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm not disagreeing one single.
I mean,
bit.
I'm just giving the ego scenario. I'm not saying this is the holy instant. No,
The
I'm saying
ego
that's
is
the interrupters to this happening.
Structurally, the ego is necessary to live in a 3D reality. In a sense. Or put it this way, the ego is not necessary because the Holy Spirit has said it can reinterpret 3D reality. But the ego is sort of like native to the illusion.
Right.
It's part of it. And so that there's a naturalness, even though it says it's unnatural. It's unnatural in the mind of God. There's a naturalness to all of these things that sound like, Jesus is calling horrendous. So like as an example, we talked the last time, and I said, Joanna, my lovely wife, she's like an object. She's just an object in my life. I met her so many years ago. She's here. Where'd she come from? Who knows? Here she is. She's not in that sense, other than the fact that she talks, has feelings, and all these other things. She's not much different than a lamp or a glass or a table.
Thanks a lot.
I'm just trying to be honest. That we're here.
I know what you mean.
No, we're here in an objectified universe.
Right.
We stroke ourselves. Oh, I'm so loving. I love the people in my life. We just kind of stroke ourselves and give ourselves, these credits, ego credits, for being a loving, compassionate, caring, interested, curious person. Structurally, though, we're talking structure. I'm not talking about what you decided or morality or ethics or nasty, sort of sociopathy that I've got about Joanna or this room or anything, like I'm a nut of some sort.
Right.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying structurally, I'm the subject. Everything else is an object. Everything else is an object because me.
Yeah, it's the I sense there.
So that there's a structural tendency to look for supports from my whole environment. Just like I looked at, where's the air? What am I contributing? I think far less about the CO2 I'm putting out. However, the
Economic Forum.
the World Economic Forum will begin to enlighten me about the CO2 I'm putting out. But anyway, I think far less about what I'm putting out there as a gas than what I require as a gas. Right. I think less about what I'm putting out there as waste product than what I want to take in as food. I kind of only notice what comes in and builds this thing up. And then I throw away what I don't like.
Right.
That's the structural relationship the body, mind even, has with the world. Do you understand? Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Is that a point made? Does that? What do you think?
Well, the thing of it is we're continuing to talk about the ego. And so on that particular one, it says the blessed instant reaches out. Let's see. You've spent, that where we were on, it was sentence 5. You have spent days, you who have spent days, hours, and even years in chaining your brothers to your ego in attempt to support it and uphold its weakness, do not perceive the source of strength. So behind all of that is a source with a capital S of strength. In this holy instant, you will unchain all your brothers.
Oh, you know what? What's interesting about just what you said, this is the deal. I described all that about what I take in and what I do. It doesn't mean that I become ascetic, and I cut these things off and I no longer abuse them by doing this. I recognize that, yes, all these things do support me. Mm-hmm. All of it does.
Yeah.
But the source is not the illusions around me. That's not the source. The source is the effulgence behind the source.
Yes, actually, yes.
God's power
the
that
light
enables this thing to even happen.
Mm-hmm. The light within, the light that's all around is the thing that's making it all happen. So, but this is to make us aware that we imprison ourselves and our brothers by wanting, craving those kinds of supports for our ego. Oh, you're so handsome. Oh, you guys are doing so well for your age. Look how great you look. Or whatever it is, someone's going to say at this point in my life. It's like, well, all of those, go, oh, that's so nice. Thank you for noticing, or whatever it is. But that is not the thing that, as in, I think you said yoga, where rupee's clay and clay is rupee.
Yeah.
That you start to let the things roll off you, both the good and the bad. because that is not who and what you really are. All of the, points of, how lovely you are at, whatever you do in your life, great. But don't let it be the only thing that feeds you, because otherwise there will always come a point where it won't feed you anymore. There will always be something that goes away.
Well, since we're talking about the holy instant, yes, of course it goes away even in the temporal order, even
Yes.
in the illusion. Those things fade, they go away. You get new relationships, you get new jobs, all this stuff. It goes away. Just like food, you eat it, it goes away. We're talking about the holy instant, or what happens in the holy instant. The veil is parted.
Yes, it is.
And a certain light comes in that is an eternal light that reveals the source behind all of this.
Yes.
It's the what do you call it? It's kind of a cliche analogy of the film, watching a movie, and I'm all involved in the movie, and the movie is really a celluloid or whatever, and there's a light shining through it, frame by frame by frame, so many frames per second. And if the camera stops, if all this happens. In fact, I don't know if you've been in a theater when the camera stops and it burns a hole through the film. It's a great moment. It's a great moment in the movie because you're going along, you go, wow, this is very real. Suddenly the screen is on fire. People's faces melt in a big hole. Have you ever been in there when it does? It's great. What happens is the camera sticks, and the light is so hot that it just almost instantly burns right through the film, and it's a fantastic addition. And then they got to get back there and fix it and slice it together.
I guess they don't do that anymore. It's all digitized.
Yeah, I know, and I know it. They'll never happen. We'll never have a moment again. But that's the moment of the holy instant. It's like that light burning through.
Yeah.
And you get this, wow, what was that? And because it's the light that's the thing. The light is enabling the whole thing.
Yes.
And when that
it is.
pops in to the plot line narrative that I have going, when the light comes in, that's the holy instant. That's the miracle. It's not... it's a revelation of what's really satisfying about anything.
Yeah.
It's not another level of information. It's not adding information. It's cutting through false information.
Yes, it is. It is. It's cutting through. In fact, that's what you find. Is that you're living during that holy instant. There's a sense that what the heck is all of this? Because truth dawns on the mind. You understand a whole other knowledge is in the instant, and it comes into you where you remember that you never left anything. Everything's all okay, But going back to, I had this memory, going back to, saints and things like that, that, they tell her to eat meat and things like that. During one meditation, when I was in and out of these holy instant type of spaces and stuff like that in my past, I had a meditation where I was being chiseled away as if I was by Jesus. I was a sculptor. I was going to be, he was actually revealing who I really was, and he was chipping all of it away, and all these rocks were falling, all these, basically cement and everything is all falling around me and everything else. And the real me is revealed. It's a light being and everything else. But he left one chunk of cement on my left foot, because you have to stay grounded while you're here. Otherwise, your purpose of being here to help awaken all your brothers and sisters is gone. You can't stay in those samadhi states or whatever it is and be effectual for helping the sonship awaken. So it's important that, as great as those moments and everything are, that it makes you want to be there. It feels like going home and everything else, that you're here in the body for a reason, because the sonship needs help. So
absolutely.
So that's just something to keep in mind as holy instants start to happen in your life.
Paragraph 4. You do not realize how much you have misused your brothers by seeing them as sources of ego support. As a result, they witness to the ego in your perception and seem to provide reasons for not letting it go. Yet they are far, far stronger and much more compelling witnesses for the Holy Spirit, and they support His strength. It is therefore your choice whether they support the ego or the Holy Spirit in you. That is your choice. and you will recognize which you have chosen by their reactions. A son of God who has been released through the Holy Spirit in a brother is always recognized. He cannot be denied. If you remain uncertain, it is only because you have not given complete release. And because of this, you have not given a single instant completely to the Holy Spirit. For when you have, you will be sure you have. You will be sure because the witness to him will speak so clearly of him that you will hear and understand. You will doubt until you hear one witness whom you have wholly released through the Holy Spirit, and then you will doubt no more. This isn't hyperbole, and it's not made up. I think maybe the first couple of times I did the Course in Miracles that I went through it or read the text or whatever, I kind of just put words like this, certain paragraphs, in a category of information of like, oh yeah, nice, and I didn't really think it out. This is giving very clear guidance that I will have a witness and I'll be able to know if I've done this release thing. Like you said, you say to yourself, I offer this to the Holy Spirit. Well, there's going to be no doubt whether you actually succeeded or not.
Yes, absolutely.
Because you will feel it, you will see it in their reaction.
Yeah, in their reactions. They're going to recognize something about people's, the way they deal with you, the way they see you, the way they all of a sudden are around you, will become, you'll both recognize the truth, I think, in those instances. They might not recognize what it is that's happening, but they'll recognize something. In the way that, I'm no Jesus, but obviously those who followed Jesus saw something, felt something, knew something about him, just his presence alone. Because he walked in the holy instant. He walked in that space of eternalness, in the vertical, in the now. I'm in the now. Obviously, he can get pulled in. He would have to go and be with his Father again in the desert or wherever to regroup and find that space again, because people pulling at you in every which way to be healed is, I'm sure, is quite a big deal.
I think it's necessary to anchor it in personal experience. So I would invite, if anybody's watching, because this is what I'm going to do, is to anchor it in your own experience. Like as I gave the experience, it's very, and I'm going to use it intentionally, it's very fleeting and light and not very dramatic. And it was the one at the basketball court when I went. We talked about it in one of those earlier ones. And over there, I had a sense of just wanting to be in the miracle-minded state of mind. I just wanted to say, okay, well, I'm not going to make decisions by myself. That's what I was saying. I'm not going to make these decisions by myself. I decided to play basketball. I'm not going to use my calculating mind to decide anything. And even when the kid there sees me, and he just sees a guy who wants to play basketball, he goes into his mind, and he says, oh, a guy's here to play. I can't allow this. There's no free shoot today. But because I was staying in that, and I said, well, I'm here to shoot basketball. And I looked over to goal, and I said, are any balls available? And the kid, without me even asking, I didn't ask him, he said, well, I guess you can shoot over there. So we had this interaction. Again, like I said, I know I'm retelling it. I respected the parameters he put on me, which is to stay on the side goal and not get carried away and do other things.
Right.
So I stayed over there, shot my free throws and shot my jump shots or whatever. And when I left, I felt love for him, and I felt love return.
Yeah.
It's just a teenager, some kid from the high school probably, that was watching the gym on that weekend when they were having these other activities. It's nothing dramatic, but I'm going to contrast it with, I just went to the grocery store, and I was loading the water in the back of the car, and I was not in this state of mind. I did not, I wasn't antagonistic or anything. I wasn't even aggressive. I felt copacetic. But the same kid, same age, same situation, I felt nothing. Nothing was there. It was just a bag boy. He took my groceries, and then I left. And so I'm saying right now, I realize, in a sense, I lost an opportunity.
Yeah.
But it's a very clear feeling difference between two. The interactions are very, very similar.
No, I know that.
And
Whenever I go through the whole thing and I realize I did not consciously engage with, another brother, and I'm just running through my little errands, I go, you missed it. You missed the opportunity there. It's just, I actually recognize that same thing.
Well, what would it look like? It would have been that I recognize where I'm at. That I'm in an environment, I'm in the sonship, I'm immersed, I'm steeped in the sonship, there's people around, and the smile of God is just waiting latent in the sonship around me. I would have to recognize that first. And then I would recognize that in the kid, that now we're in an intimate environment because he's there to deliver my shopping cart to the right place.
Exactly.
That's intimacy, that's service, that's interaction. Out of all the possible lifetimes, the blind turtle in the donut ring on the ocean, I have this interaction with this kid at Country Mart. And instead of recognizing the drama, the precision, the beauty of that interaction, I missed it.
Yeah.
I missed it. And I could have been there, it's like, wake up.
Yeah.
That's what it's about. Wake up.
Mm-hmm. So that's all about seeing the witnesses to our being with the Holy Spirit. And then the Holy Instant has the opportunity to show us another way, show us another world, not just another way, but another world.
And the deal is, I have the world in chains. As long as I want the world, like the kid at the shopping cart thing just recently, if I am not noticing that there's an effulgence in him, if I'm not noticing that he's a living brother, that we're in this dance together in this moment, if I'm not noticing that, I really keep him in chains.
Yeah.
He's nothing but a troglodyte moving stuff around, having to endure the weather or endure stuff he doesn't want to do. He'd rather be on his phone for I don't know what.
And we have an exchange of the peace, sharing peace at that one moment in Mass.
Right,
we shake your hands or go peace. And
it's the same
that's
thing.
the same thing.
It's an opportunity. You can either
moment.
You can either shake hands with that clump.
Or you can recognize, this is my brother. This is my brother. And really attempt to share peace.
And the reactions, and that's what it's saying. I guess the point of this, the upshot of it is that there's a radical difference in what I perceive, and it's saying here that their reaction will be different.
Yeah, their reaction to me will be different. I know, that's pretty amazing. They will recognize at the very end there. It says a son of God who has been released through the Holy Spirit. That's sentence 7. Who has been released through the Holy Spirit in a brother is always recognized. He cannot be denied. If you remain uncertain, it is only because you have not given complete release.
Yeah, the witness to him will speak so clearly of him that you will hear and understand. There's nothing ambiguous here.
Yeah. So let's go on. Paragraph 5. The holy instant has not yet happened to you, yet it will, and you will recognize it with perfect certainty. No gift of God is recognized in any other way. You can practice the mechanics of the holy instant and will learn much from doing so. Yet, its shining and glittering brilliance, which will literally blind you to this world by its own vision, you cannot supply. You cannot supply. And here it is, all in this instant, complete, accomplished, and given wholly.
I feel vindicated by this. You can practice the mechanics of the holy instant and will learn much from doing so. In other words, this is a practice session. This is this world, the sonship, the 3D reality is a workshop.
Yeah.
And I can use these instants and say, okay, get myself ready, and go out and practice.
Right.
Practice. With what? Routine interactions.
Yeah.
I mean, I could go down
and recognizing that if you practice even saying, I offer this moment to the Holy Spirit. I offer this moment to the Holy Spirit, and I offer this moment to the Holy Spirit. I think I did that just the other day because it was required of one of the lessons, and it was interesting just to feel it, because or be still an instant and go home. And then that's another lesson. And you just stop and just hold just an instant of just quietude. And something feels different. It might not be the holy instant, but a moment of just peace stays for an instant. And so those are the instances. I mean, so each time there's a practice, the mechanics, you can practice the mechanics of the holy instant, and we'll learn much from doing so. So I recommend we all practice and see what happens next time.
Okay, well, you know, and there's a thing here, like when a woman's pregnant and they give her these exercises, the Kegels,
Yeah.
and they're not pleasant. You know, it's like it's just such a tedious exercise to, you know, flex your whatever, your sphincter muscle or whatever it is, and it's just tedious. But it's a muscle that doesn't usually get much attention, and you know, so you have to do a program of it. And I've never thought, only till now, that you could literally make a program of going out and trying this miracle mindedness, like intentionally get in the car, go to the hardware store, get in the car, go get gas, whatever it is, go to work, and set out to do these exercises. You know, like, and I might not be able to handle it. Like, let's say I go into a workplace, I might not be able to handle the full commute, so I dedicate 10 minutes of the commute. I might not be able to handle the full 8-hour day, but so I dedicate, you know, I say, okay, this is my practice period, you know, the next 2 hours, the next hour, and dedicate it, because if you do that, I'd say that there's more intention loaded into the thing, and there's a less likelihood I'm going to forget what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I mean, obviously, any instance where there's conflict or upsetness, like with a boss or a coworker, a kid, your own child, your husband, your wife, or whatever it is that's going on, a friend, that's a moment to offer to the Holy Spirit. They're all moments to offer to the Holy Spirit. You know, instead of just reacting, it's a moment to just take a breath and say, I offer this to the Holy Spirit. Because the Holy Spirit's just waiting for us to say we want help. And if we don't want help, well, we won't get any.
No, when it says it blinds you to, literally blind you to this world, it doesn't say it'll blind you. It blinds you to this world, meaning it's not like when I hear that, I think white light or something. It's not. It's just blinds you to this world, meaning that there's an overwhelming love and beauty and cohesion in the world that emerges from those instants, and they're distinctly different than every day.
Yes, they are.
You know, I mean, I went through it. We went to Mass this morning, and I went through that for some period of time, for whatever reason. I don't really even know why. Where you can tell it. There's a kind of a beautiful reality that doesn't really have labels attached to it. That you just anticipating what these people are going to say or do. You know, you're grateful for what these people say or do. And it's a spontaneous thing. It's not artificial at all, and it's not controllable. Like it said, you can't supply it. You know, it's very important. I can't supply it, but I can dispose myself to it, you know, by deciding to, you know, do the practice.
Yeah. And also, like, you won't get so upset if the music isn't the way you want it to be. And there were some pretty interesting instances today. I mean, because you're in a different space, so you recognize, you know, people are just doing what they do, and they're doing their best. Yeah, well, I suppose.
I'll admit that soprano took me right out of the holy instant. Okay, paragraph 6. Now start to practice your little part in separating out the holy instant. You will receive very specific instructions as you go along. To learn to separate out this single second and to experience it as timeless is to begin to experience yourself as not separate. Fear not that you will not be given help in this. God's teacher and his lesson will support your strength. It is only your weakness that will depart from you in this practice, for it is the practice of the power of God in you. Use it but for one instant, and you will never deny it again. Who can deny the presence of what the universe bows to in appreciation and gladness? before the recognition of the universe that witnesses to it, your doubts must disappear. So
There it is. Doubts must disappear. That's what this is all about. The end of doubt.
but this okay, start now to practice your little part in separating out the holy instant. It's saying that, yeah, I've got a day of intentions, I've got a day of routines, I've got a day of practices, things I do. Start to try to identify the different thing. Try to...
Yeah, the noticing.
And that's why it would be a valuable thing to actually say, well, I'm going to go out and practice. I'm going to go out, I'm going to the bank, so I'm going to do it now. I'm going to do it because I'm going to the bank.
Yeah, any interactions at all.
And it said you will receive
opportunities.
very specific instructions. What, like a little voice on your shoulder? No, it's what happens is within yourself, as I said about the basketball one, because that's a recent one, and it was good because it was probably one of the more mechanical of these, where I actually was trying to do something.
Right.
I got certain instructions, like I pull in the parking lot, packed with cars. Don't leave the parking lot. It's just, okay. It's very subtle. It's very subtle.
Yeah, I hear those kinds of things a lot, actually.
Don't leave the parking lot.
Keep going.
Go in. The kid just told you can't shoot.
Yeah.
Just ask, just stand there. Just look at him and see. And he changed his mind.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I was, had him by the lapels and said, I'm here to shoot. I was prepared to leave. And say, okay, well, I was correct. I should have turned around and left. So it's a very light and subtle thing, but it's very particularly different than the usual thing. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I would say that's fair to say. I've had conversations with friends at certain times where I know that I'm truly present with them, and something shifts just in the conversation, or even the way we look at each other in the eyes to have the conversation. And other times I hear, this is not the time to discuss that particular thing that you think is important to say. I actually hear, not now. That's not now, So, it's being aware of that sort of slight, because there's those moments where you think that you're going to be helpful, let's say, in some kind of psychological way or something with somebody. But God has other plans for people that we don't understand.
Well, I know, but I also want to, and I've done this several times.
Yes.
And I do this intentionally. This is like the difference between really kind of like day and night. Night meaning, let's say, the conventional 3D way of dealing with things. And within that reality, there are intuitions. There's little messages. There are little glimmers. There's little beautiful spots within that.
Right.
This is different. This is a realm where,
I understand
where a universe reveals itself.
I do understand that.
But I don't want to make it weird either. It's not like lights, camera. It's not this weird thing. It's the same old world. But my felt sense of it is other. That's all I can say. It's other. I'm for lack of another way of saying it, I'm softened. I relax. I'm appreciative.
Yes.
Overall, it feels like gratitude.
Yeah.
And it's not the gratitude for thanks for doing that, or I appreciate that person or that friend.
I understand exactly.
So how can you say something about the different, because it is different. It's like that lady that I did not post the link to.
Yes, she did have a story.
It's night and day.
Yeah, it is night and day. But while you're beginning to practice it, what the first thing that I notice for myself is that very same feeling that you're talking about, where you're not invested in the outcome of anything. There's a sense that whatever is going to be the next instant, it doesn't matter because I'm leaving that instant to the Holy Spirit. The reason why I said that in regards to a conversation and everything, I'm actually in that state of being. I try to be in that state of being when I'm in a conversation. And so then if I feel completely at peace, I'm not invested in trying to save someone's life or, think that I have the better idea of what needs to happen there or anything else. Now I'm receptive. I'm here and I'm receptive to the Holy Spirit and whether or not I'm being helpful with that person. Well, there's a sense then when I walk away That I don't feel like, oh, I wish so-and-so would have da-da-da-da. I don't know what just transpired because I stayed in a state where I hope that the Holy Spirit worked through me regardless of whether or not I was saying anything. Because there's that moment where you're just not invested in a particular outcome with anybody.
So I don't want to leave it with this sense of like because it says in the Course that it's not a time-bound, obviously, according to the Course, time is not the factor. Time,
right.
It's a quality of surrendering a certain moment. Now, it may take a lot of, as it says in the Course, it takes purification sometimes, meaning I just don't know how to let go of my ego in a certain situation. It doesn't mean like I'm sitting here saying it like Phil's got control of his ego. No, I'm a mess. I mean, it's like I've got, no, really. I mean, I know it's a cliche to say that, but,
Cliche.
But I just want to say it's not like this spiritualistic thing. But at my age and the fact that I have gone through a whole bunch of stuff and there have been purifications and I have been thrown under the bus on several occasions, different things happen so that you are maybe more disposed. But that doesn't preclude the idea that you can listen to what the Course in Miracles is instructing on how to assemble yourself,
Yes.
a holy instant.
Right.
And now the Holy Spirit does it. It's not my doing.
Yeah, it's not my doing. That's I just want to say it's not an attainment.
Right.
It's not like I do something to attain this particular moment. No, it's a surrender and an offering. And the Holy Spirit answers.
Well,
in that moment I'm not doing anything.
Well, there has to be a satisfaction to clear the altar.
Yeah.
To clean the screen. And that's the yoga of it. That's always the yoga of it, to enjoy just recognizing that I have a bunch of stuff, idols, gods on the altar. It's a step to even recognize that those are there.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've had conversations with people that are near and dear to me, and they don't really know what they're thinking about. They don't really understand what they're thinking about because they're so accustomed to having an inner posture towards, oh, these are my thoughts. This is what I think. And it's so practiced, and they're so deft at keeping themselves separated from their outside world that they might have one of those altars that the Course talks about, just cluttered with false ideas about who they are and who other people are, and thoughts and attitudes and opinions. And it's like no blame, as it says in whatever the Tao. It's like it's no blame. It's just it's what everybody does. So I feel like it's a slippery slope to even get into this, because it's saying it, and it's necessary to experience, and it is different than your everyday experience. It is different. And yet, it's not something to die for, and you can't push it, and who cares? In the end, who cares? I don't know what to say about that. It's one of those deals. What do you do? What do you say? Because I'm just going back in my time machine.
Right.
At the hopelessness and helplessness I always felt, whether I went into a yoga studio or some quote-unquote spiritual teacher was telling me some stuff, or I was reading some book about some enlightened master. Well, my experience was a billion miles away from any of that stuff. And it was for, is, whatever. I finally gave up on it, right?
All I can say is that I find the Course to be extremely practical. If you practice what it's saying, you're bound to have some awarenesses come upon you. If they don't, it means that you don't really want it. It means that you want your ego more than you want.
I know, but that sounds like an accusation. It sounds.
Well, the thing of it is, it's just true though, because it just means that you don't want it.
Well, let's put it this way then. I have a way of viewing myself in this world, and I want to.
I'm just being honest.
No.
You have to be honest with yourself about what you really want and check in, because it says if you really want it, it will start to answer you. But if you decide that you still want your old way, just the way you do stuff and the way you think and everything else, it's offering another way to go about your life so that you do have more peace. You do have more flows into your life and not just discord.
Well, okay, I've got to put it in a context because I feel uncomfortable
Okay.
leaving it like this because it reminds me so much of the spiritualistic stuff that I went through, and I was left high and dry. I was always left high and dry. And I want to try to understand a way. I like to understand in the 3D what's going on. Okay, my ex and I did natural childbirth, and in that process, it was actually unassisted home birth. The baby was born at home. I caught the baby, no doctors,
Right.
all this kind of stuff. We went through a process of that, and rather than wear that one out and make this a workshop on natural childbirth, unassisted home birth, which was a shocking idea. I mean, it was quite enlightening to me.
Sure.
It was enlightening when we read the book on it, and I'm going, whoa, I almost felt dizzy reading the book. I said, what the hell? They do it with nobody there? What are they thinking, And yet you think, well, squirrels do it, A lot of people do it, so why can't I? So, but I can't offer natural, that kind of unassisted home birth. It's a radical decision, and a person who's steeped in the medical jargon and attitudes and narratives, there's no way. In fact, I would say, do not even think about it. Don't even think about doing an unassisted home birth unless you have been through some ringers. Don't make yourself try to do it because you will be scared out of your wits.
Yeah, and that won't be helpful.
No, it can be terrifying because you abandon your cues, you abandon anything that's going to help you get through this by what you've ever heard of other people's stories and things. And even when you go forward and you say, well, we did an unassisted home birth, people like, what? God Almighty, you're lucky. You are so lucky that you're not dead. It's just it's a horrible thing. So what I'm saying is that decision, it's not unlike this. It's not unlike this of this whole thing about spirituality. If I like to be in the world I'm in, I like cream cheese on bagels with a cup of coffee. I don't really want to think about that. I want to read the newspaper. I want to be good to people. I want to be kind to people. I want them to be kind with me. It's great. Stay there. Dig it. Go through it. There's a lot of beauty there. It's a wonderful thing. I apologize if this sounds condescending or anything like that. This is a great life. It's a great world. This thing about the holy instants and the miracles and all this stuff, as wonderful as those things are, man, that's a decision, and it's a different life, and it's a different orientation in life, and I've gone through some hard things that made me want to see another side to things.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. And it's oftentimes during the hard times that you want to see it differently, that you really, really want to see it differently, and I mean, I'll be one to say I also had a major shift, and it was during a very tragic moment in my life where I just go, I don't know what anything is for or anything else. And for some, practices, I was doing walking meditations at the time, so it helped me to keep my mind clear after I cried all night and everything else. And the next day, it was more than just a holy instant. It was a revelation. But that being said, I wouldn't want to push anybody to any of that. I wouldn't want to say, yeah, go through some hard times for God's sake, and maybe you'll wake up. No,
you've got to want to do it.
You still have to live in this world.
There's a term in Hinduism, I think I've mentioned it before, called swadharma. There's dharma, which is truth, your job, your station in life, just dharma, truth. But then there's another one, or duty, and there's another called swadharma, swa meaning self. So there's a self-dharma, and a self-dharma is radically different and more precise than a dharma. And a swadharma is, you've got to be honest about what you like. You've got to be honest about where you want to go, what you do. That's what all those first videos I stuck up on this channel,
yes.
That's what I was trying to get at, and I don't know how successful it is. But, but there's a sense of, I am built a certain way, and it's a good thing. And so the thing about measuring myself and letting a miracle or a holy instant be like a straight edge, that I'm going to tear myself against to achieve that, don't do it.
Yeah, no.
It's swadharma. Swadharma means the intentions are there. Let that be enough. I mean, does that make any sense? Am I going over the top with my concerns?
Yeah, no, I think, I don't think you need to be any further concerned. The thing of it is that a holy instant will dawn on the minds of those who practice them in accordance. I think that people will begin to experience it. Now, to live for them, in other words, to start changing everything up, not to the point where, that becomes your priority and everything else starts to fall away. Your kids, I need to stay in my meditations. I need to stay wherever you do.
No, there's dharma, man. There's people in your life. There's things in your life. You got to show up. That's number one.
Yeah.
That's number one.
And every moment with those.
You got to show up for your life.
Everyday life stuff is the opportunity to have the Holy Spirit there with you then. It's not to separate yourself out. That's the ego's doing that, separating yourself out. You got to deal with. I agree with what goes on in the daily life. That's why you're here.
Yeah.
So it's all an opportunity to learn who we really are.
Exactly, who we really are.
Yes. All right. You think that's good?
That's good enough.
Okay. Thank you, everyone.